Hi, my name is Jeffrey Reynolds. This is The Informative Speech. It's about the geographic theory of societal evolution. If you don't know what that is, it's the idea that the world itself, the very shape of it, is what shapes how societies develop. Most of these ideas I'm going to be talking about come from a man named Jared Diamond, and they're featured in his books The Third Chimpanzee, Collapse, and Guns, Germs, and Steel. There's also a term called Black Swan, which can actually be applied to this whole theory. That comes from Nassim Taleb, and it comes from his book called The Black Swan. There's no surprise there. But the theory itself means three things. A black swan is a surprise, it has a major effect, and it can be rationalized later by people. So it's something that in hindsight people would have said, oh, I could have swore I saw that coming. But they really couldn't. There's counter-arguments to this idea that the planet, and the way the planet's arranged, is what shapes society. But the arguments seem almost inherently racist. It says that all people aren't created equal. It says that somehow an American or a Western European or a Russian, what have you, is somehow naturally more intelligent than, let's say, an Aboriginal Australian, which is proven time and time again to be a falsehood. This theory by Mr. Diamond, however, proves why some cultures are more technologically advanced than others, and he says it's because of the very shape of the planet itself. This slide right here shows the political trouble spots in the world and the environmental trouble spots in the world. This is why this theory is very important, because all these spots exist in what we call third world nations. But why are there even third world nations to begin with? Why isn't every world a first world nation? It's an interesting question, and his answer for it is some countries had a massive head start based on the shape of the earth itself. And this table right here kind of breaks down his general idea that the east-west axis of the world, let me flip to the map real quick. The Eurasian landmass runs east to west and sits primarily on what's called a Mediterranean climate. So all the best plants grow there, and all the animals that are able to be domesticated arise from there. Where if you look at Africa, or if you look at the Americas, they run north to south mostly. So you'll find a couple species and a couple plant cultivars, but not nearly as many as this long stretch right there. But back to this original chart, the east-west axis leads to many suitable wild species. It leads to an ease of species spreading from one tribe to another, which leads to them being domesticated by people, which is a black swan event, which then leads to food surplus, large, dense cities, or gatherings of people, infrastructure, society, which then leads to technology, which then leads to horses, guns, steel, swords, ocean-going ships, political organization, writing, and unfortunately it also leads to epidemic disease. This right here is a table that explains the world distribution of large seeded grasses. There's approximately 56 large seeded grasses, and 33 of them come from this area right here. That's also where society first developed. If we click back to this chart right here, we'll see that human beings have their origin around Ethiopia 7 million years ago. They spread out to the Eurasian landmass. They crossed the land bridge into the Americas. And by only 10,000 years ago, they reached Tierra del Fuego in South America. An apology for anybody that believes in any sort of counter-evolution or creationary forces. I don't mean to offend you. Again, this is just this man's theory about how the shape of the planet shapes society itself. So if you believe in creation, this might not be exactly for you. This right here is a table documenting all the large species that can be domesticated. When I say domesticated, I mean horses, cows, chickens, animals that are raised for food or workforce. And again, if you look at the chart, dogs, sheep, goats, pigs, cows, horses, donkeys, water buffalo, llama, and the two types of camels, one humping two, all of them, except for alpacas, are native to the Eurasian landmass. And this chart right here is actually a chart of really terrible diseases that humans get and cause epidemics. And right here is the related pathogen where it arises in animals. They all have an analog that starts with animals first. We've all heard of swine flu and bird flu. Measles actually comes from cattle. Tuberculosis comes from cattle. Smallpox comes from cowpox and cattle. The flu from pigs and ducks. Pertussis, pigs and ducks. And malaria, birds. The idea is that if you're living with livestock, you get these diseases, but over a long period of time, you build up an immunity to these diseases. So, having the best type of climate along this axis right here, what we call Mediterranean, and also down here to a degree, but mainly what they call the Fertile Crescent, which was in today's modern Middle East. All these domesticatable animals and all the best vegetables, all the things healthiest for humans and animals, arise in this area. And it spreads along like climate. Like climate runs east to west. It can't really run north to south because north to south it faces extreme climate change. You hit the equator and you start hitting desert and rainforest and things like that. So it's no surprise that the spread of all these different animals all spreads east to west or west to east. The spread of language does the same exact thing. The spread of information, the spread of like-minded political bodies. All these things spread east to west. And there's one other slide I have to show you, which is part of his theory. It's that in China, which became unified much, much greater than the European landmass, on the other side of the Eurasian landmass, became that way because of hegemony, because there's no great mountain ranges until you reach the west of China, and there's no inlets and massive rivers separating the peoples. However, if you look at the coastline of Europe, it's very jagged, and there's islands, there's bodies of water, there's mountain ranges and rivers, all these things. What that serves to do is isolate the people and, well, it serves to isolate the people and they break off and form their own city-states. That in turn leads to competition. Competition leads to technology. Technology leads to advances in civilization. In conclusion, I just wanted to say it's the shape of the planet Earth that has gone on to shape human society, not any inherent differences in the people of planet Earth. And the shape lends itself to climate. The climate lends itself to better crops and domesticatable animals. Animals lead to disease. Disease leads to immunity to disease. The shape of the coastline is a mountain range to the separation of cultures, which fuels warfare. And like I just said, warfare fuels technology. Thus, the history of Earth is one of climates, cultivation, and guns, germs, and steel. That was my presentation. Thank you very much.